Here's the dirty little secret that's very un-American. You can't be anything you want to be. You can't. You're not going to be an NBA basketball star, likely. You're not going to be the president, and you're sure as shit not going to be an astronaut, because you got to be a certain height with incredible eyesight and have an IQ that is in the 99th percentile. And not just an IQ, you have to be able to sustain attention for like 8 hours straight. Guess what? Nobody can just make themselves do that if they're not wired to do that. And so we set people up, and we do the same thing with retirement. We set, oh, hey, these are your golden years. And then, all the pictures of people in these wonderful Tommy Bahama lounge outfits playing golf and paddle board or whatever the hell you call it. That doesn't do it, man. I mean, I do know people that are having fun playing golf, but there are also people that spend the rest of their evenings watching one or the other of the news outlets. And they are extremely self-righteous, leftists or rightists. They are binary thinkers, and they weren't before they retired. They were, moderates, little left of center, a little right of center, but they were working with the machine. It was moving forward. It needed to be fixed, but people were in the grind, and now they're angry. They have a great time playing golf and having cocktails, and then they're angry and they're shit posting at age 69, 70, and their confirmation bias news outlets that are full of bunk. And these smart people that I once knew that were incredible careerists, look like ignorant Americans. And I say ignorant, not as in stupid, just uninformed people who don't have anything better to do than bitch and complain about stuff. But that's part of the setup.
What is going on, everyone? Tis Miyanovich, and I welcome you to the main dojo, the place where we process the raw struggles of men in an unprecedented paradigm. There is something inside of you that wants you to be more than what you are. But there also may be something inside of you that wants you to go down. And for some of us, that means going down for good. So, remove your ego, drop your bullshit, become vulnerable, and step into the dojo, mate. It's an interesting dynamic to. This is what I was thinking about today. What I think a lot of people, even men, don't understand about manhood, maleness, masculinity. When we think of it in typical ways, like the patriarchal structure, etc., power structures, men being on top of that. It's bivalent. It's not just one thing, right? It's probably more than two things. It's complex. But one of the things that comes with the men are in control or men have the power is that, as you said in the beginning of us talking, men are also a throwaway. That those are, if I had to pick two aspects of actual what is fucking maleness as a Homo sapien, those would be the two things I would pick to start. Would be power struggle, top of the power structure or hierarchy, or top of the power situation in the group was one. The other one is evolution, and people don't fucking care about what happens to you. Once we're done using you, you're done. Those two things I would talk about. And those are the things that are inside of men, whether they realize it or not. You're not worth it. You're useless. Past a certain point, no one gives a fuck. Shut the fuck up and go in the dirt. That's really inside of men. And then the other part is, who's in fucking charge? I'm in charge. And when I get in charge, I'm going to fucking maintain it. Because the other option is, who fucking cares about you? You're going in the dirt. I was thinking about that today. What do you think about like those two things coming together inside of men, and also talk a little bit more about fuck men, who cares? Like, fuck you and your value.
I think you just hit the basic building block construct of those two things. That there's, to me, part of getting the power and being successful. Okay. I mean, we all know it all comes down to one thing: getting laid, right? Like if that wasn't an issue, dude, we would be shooting pool all day long or just hanging out in trees. We would have never gotten past basically being able to groom our own genitals because there's like, hey, we got everything we need right here. Am I right? So, but having that, establishing the success, and I think those were great days, Rick. Back in the tundra, you just hanging out in the tree.
Can I go back? That'd be great.
But part of why I think we do strive for success is to get laid. And as older men, your value is your success, because while you might be alpha and you might have the muscle mass and the structure, you're breaking down. You're not protecting the village anymore. You're calling shots. And the shot callers are still breeders. Now, I'm just going from a straight evolution perspective here. The shot callers they can still have their harem because they have value. They're not ready for the dirt. The chiefs aren't. But the other ones kind of are. And so if Mother Nature says, look, you only one of you has any value to moving the species forward. We need all the females, but we only just really need one of you. So the rest of you, I'm marching you into gunfire. You're the ones that are going into battle. You know, if you don't make it, I don't care. But I really need the females of the species in order to keep the diversity going so we don't inbreed, right? Which would happen if we only had a half a dozen females and a whole bunch of males. The whole social structure would break down. I'm talking about monkeys right now, but we live with that. And so, I'm 63 and I have a lot of friends that are this age. I have a lot of friends that are younger, male and female. But the men my age that I'm around tend to be in leadership positions. They do or were. And they tend to have established kind of an intrinsic value to how they see themselves. But where they struggle is in retirement, figuring out what they're going to do. They just didn't think it through. They thought golf would be the end all be all, but now where is my value? This thing that I have lived for 65 years, the importance of me being me. I said it earlier. I'm an extraordinarily lucky person. I'm not a guy with a lot of talents. I'm just very, very lucky. I was born to educated parents that were upper middle class. I was part of the dominant culture, the dominant color, reasonably bright brain. None of that is anything I did. I'm just very, very lucky, and I don't take it for granted. So when I say this, that these are struggles for men like me, I don't mean to say, because man, I get it. I know to be even a man of another culture or less dominant or a disenfranchised group has to be hell. I can't experience that. I don't know it, but I understand it from the stories and what I've seen. If I could take a side note and just do my, I don't know if I'm woke or not, but this is my statement, is that not only do I acknowledge, and appreciate and empathize with the African American or the Black struggle. I've seen it play out. I really have, and I'm not in a town that has a lot of African Americans, but I've seen it play out. We don't have any other population of people or immigrants in this country, and they didn't immigrate; they were forced into it. That were removed from their families, their tribes, had their language stripped of them, their music, their religion, and then their families broken up, and then expected to somehow just get out there and make them up, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and then Jim Crow laws to follow. So sorry, that didn't mean to be a rant, but I recognize that to be a man, to be a Black male is something I can't even comprehend. All I can do is try to support, and try to, offer anything I can to compensate for what they've gone through. Now, do they have the same things in common with me at age 63? I honestly believe they absolutely do. That even within their culture and structure and every society that I know of on the planet, the dynamics are still part of that evolution we just talked about. And so at that point where, hey, dude, you should go in the dirt, I think that's a real thing for everyone. And then at some point, like my father, for example, is 93. It was kind of an alpha and a leader, and but somewhere in his 70s, 80s, a lot of that disappeared, and he was kind of lost. And he indulged himself in more painting and art, which gave him identity, thank God, or he would have been completely lost. But my stepfather, also an alpha leader, dean of students in a college, and this isn't anything I wouldn't say to him. He struggled with retirement. Like, what's my purpose? Why am I even here anymore? My kids are doing good. They get to inherit some money. Maybe I just need to clock out and go, Viking style, or Eskimo style, put me on an ice floe and send me out to sea. I'm not of use anymore. How does that play out though for, older women? And I'll tell you my mother's story, but how do you think that? Like, what about women who are 65 and their sense of value and purpose in society?
The first thing that comes to my mind is there's likely something that happens internally with the inability to bear children would be something that would register, and that would be register as a negative, like a negative force, a negative experience. But what I often see from females is it was like they had a special capsule inside of them or compartment, and they were just born to be grandmothers. Like it was essential to their being, almost as close as having children themselves. Sometimes, like with my mother, it seems like that capsule was better than her capsule for having her own children. It was larger, more resplendent, more giving to them. And I can't say this happens with everyone, but I see it a lot. That care, that love, that purpose inside of a female when she gets to be a grandmother is like off the fucking charts.
Sure is. Yeah.
I don't see that in men.
I see it. I can see it in some. They love being grandpas, but not at the level of nurturing and caring that, like the granddad's ready to give those kids back, at the end of the evening, right? Like, hey, I had my fun. I filled them full of sugar, threw the ball, and it's great. But, I got to watch Carson. And, but grandma wants to keep them forever. And she's over there making breakfast the next day. That value is still, that's an important thing to give somebody a reason to live longer. And they do. They absolutely do. My mother absolutely was a second mom to her grandkids. Maybe to the point where she should have had better boundaries, but, you would never have convinced her of that. And where she probably just became depressed, and was ready to check out was when she wasn't able to be valuable to her grandkids. Certainly not her kids anymore, because we were all in our 50s when she kind of turned this direction of, feeling useless. But even to her grandkids, and the only thing she could do at that point was to maybe provide a little money and help them out. But she was too tired, and her own needs for support and psychological support, but also physical support, just eliminated her ability to be, Mimi, who could step in and parent and make dinner and, have fun. And that was kind of how she went, just like that. There's probably something to that. I mean, there's a point at which there's that natural cycle where it's okay. Now here's the ice flow. It's time to go. Yeah.
And, my mom is at a very similar, she's at the place now where it's not quite gone, but her physical issues are now just dominating her completely.
Yeah.
And, so that's a tough thing to see. And my stepdad has gone through the same thing that, your stepdad went through, which is, my stepdad worked at an elite private school for 49 years, high school. And that's where I went to high school and a little bit of middle school. And he was not a highfalutin guy, because we're like blue collar. He worked in the athletic department, and he was the field manager and the equipment manager. So he lined all the fields. And this is a 148-acre private school. So nice. Soccer, lacrosse, field hockey, baseball. Yeah. He lined and cut all the fields. He ordered all the equipment. He handed out all the uniforms. He worked the clock at the basketball game and the wrestling. He got paid fucking well. He got an amazing benefits package. Nobody fucked with him. He was like the king of the athletic facility. Everybody needed him. He had you could hear him walking down and like from a mile away because of the keys. The key ring was like ka-ching, ka-ching.
Key rings. Yeah.
You know what I mean? He checked the chlorine in the pool. He was the motherfucker in the athletic department, and everybody loved him and everybody needed him, and nobody was his boss. Everybody didn't know what to do. So he was the dude. So that's 50 years of him doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And he stretched it out to the end. He couldn't he retired when he just retired in 2021. He was 78. He retired when he was 78. Yeah. Cause
he did stretch it out to the end.
Well, he said, I didn't know. I was terrified. He just kept, he stayed there until like many other people were doing his work for him because he just couldn't do it anymore. And he did this littler and littler and littler. So now he tried riding, he hangs out with his friends and he rides his bike sometimes. He's 82, but he has the same thing. He had no value. He didn't know what to do. It's probably pretty typical of that generation.
Yeah.
And kind of sad to watch, but so I'm starting to experience inside of myself and seeing in some other people there's cascading crises that are in my community, in our community. And it goes along with kind of what we're talking about. There's already kind of a devaluation process happening internally, physiologically, a little bit mentally around us. There's seemingly more paper cutting coming from around us. Mm-hmm. And it's like the beginning of this phase that we're talking about, which is this is going to end in us kind of not feeling like we have no value and going in the fucking dirt. And, I'm trying to, with this podcast and with the Mang Dojo community, trying to get out ahead of this to make sure that people do have value. They do have focus. They do start the right thing when they're 50 years old so that when they retire, they're fucking 20 years into something they love and can step into or whatever. But I really want to, drill down on the whole maleness, essential maleness, and that there's already something inside of us that just kind of wants us to go away.
Yeah.
And we're not necessarily in control of that. And it seems to me to be an issue of, the old fight against the dying of the light. Don't fucking go silently into that. Don't just fucking give in to that. Do what you can to get out of it, or not to get out of it, but to fight against it. And I think also in order to do that, we have to talk about what's going on in society today, where if you're on the left side of the socio-political spectrum, there's this really potent vector of fuck men, or men are shit, or it's all shit. So we're like, as a left of center person getting to middle age, some of us are like fighting evolution, trying to suck us down, and then society going, fuck you, right? Even though we're white, and I'm 6'4", and I've had all the privilege, it's still fucking weighing on me.
Yeah, so I guess that was the point I was making earlier, is I don't want to be like that little bitch that says, hey, this is still kind of hard. But it is. All this stuff is subjective anyway. What we experience is, can be tempered by what you have. But let's remember the data shows that wealthy people aren't any happier than middle class or even people of low means. The life satisfaction surveys are about the same. If you get down into where you don't know where your next meal is or where you're going to sleep, that happiness does drop. But for the most part, affluence and all of that doesn't bring happiness. It makes it a little easier to get to. It certainly makes leisure easy to get to. And if leisure makes you happy some of the time, you do get that benefit if you have money and you can retire before you're 60. But at the end of the day, what humans seek, and I don't think this is gender specific at all, is that sense of purpose and meaning and living virtuously. I don't mean that from a religious perspective. Virtue, really, I mean that more from a Stoic perspective. Virtue meaning, with nature, our natural state of being, and living with nature and the universe as it drives us forward. That's happiness. It's not actually happiness. It's just called being satisfied or being, reasonably okay with the way things are going. Because happiness can't be sustained. You have these peaks and then you're not happy again. And to pursue that or tell people otherwise, that this, that, and the other, read this book and you'll be a happy person, is bullshit. We actually do that to our kids in school. We tell them, these are the things that will make you happy. These are the things that will make you successful, and you can be anything you want. Those are all setups, but it's absolutely ingrained in curriculum these days, and the more feel-good approach to education, which has many positive aspects. But one of the negatives is that we set our young humans up for tremendous disappointment, because you can't sustain happiness. And hey, here's the dirty little secret that's very un-American. You can't be anything you want to be. You can't. You're not going to be an NBA basketball star, likely. You're not going to be the president, and you're sure as shit not going to be an astronaut, because you got to be a certain height with incredible eyesight and have an IQ that is in the 99th percentile. And not just an IQ, you have to be able to sustain attention for like 8 hours straight. Guess what? Nobody can just make themselves do that if they're not wired to do that. And so we set people up, and we do the same thing with retirement. We set, oh, hey, these are your golden years. And then, all the pictures of people in these wonderful Tommy Bahama lounge outfits playing golf and paddle board or whatever the hell you call it. That doesn't do it, man. I mean, I do know people that are having fun playing golf, but there are also people that spend the rest of their evenings watching one or the other of the news outlets. And they are extremely self-righteous, leftists or rightists. They are binary thinkers, and they weren't before they retired. They were, moderates, little left of center, a little right of center, but they were working with the machine. It was moving forward. It needed to be fixed, but people were in the grind, and now they're angry. They have a great time playing golf and having cocktails, and then they're angry and they're shit posting at age 69, 70, and their confirmation bias news outlets that are full of bunk. And these smart people that I once knew that were incredible careerists, look like ignorant Americans. And I say ignorant not as in stupid, just uninformed people who don't have anything better to do than bitch and complain about stuff. But that's part of the setup. Now, I'll tell you, just personally, I retired when I was 57, as you know. And so I am officially a retiree. I'm a pension earner, but I still work. I run this company. I do consulting and advising, and I'm still a professional artist and writer. Honest to God, if I didn't do those things, there's no way I would stick around, because I'm easily bored. And maybe this is my weakness. Maybe I'm not an evolved human, but I've got to have some sort of purpose and momentum moving me forward, or I'll get in trouble. I'll end up in jail. I'm not sure. I don't want to know.
I'll make two comments and then I'll move us to the next thing. But the first thing is, I say to people all the time that are talking about like white male patriarchy or the male power hierarchy. It's got some good points. That concept has some good points, but people are just using it to stereotype in broad stroke, and it does not reflect the actual nuance of reality. Most of the men inside of those hierarchies, wherever they are inside of the pyramid, they're fucking miserable. Especially the higher up you get. It's not like they're flying through life like, I'm taking advantage of my whiteness and my maleness and I'm flying high and this is fucking amazing. That's not the experience of the vast majority of males in the fucking pyramid whatsoever. The vast majority of the males are probably following some mythology that if they get to some place, they're gonna feel fucking amazing and it's gonna be great. But that never happens, and they're either just normal and they're back and forth between happy and sad, or they're fucking miserable. The patriarchy, the patriarchy punishes itself, is what I want to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially kind of Western or American patriarchy. It's driven. There's a work-life balance that is not balanced for most people in American culture, and I shouldn't say just Western. Japanese is kind of Western now, but certainly that work-life balance isn't happening in many cultures that are, kind of in the industrialized first world, where you work. That is part of, in my opinion, that is part of the kind of one of the men's issues, is figuring that out. Now, I say this at the same time recognizing that women are expected to work and also be homemakers and do both of those things. And where the helper man can be truly helpful is to take some of that burden off of the homemaker. But again, there's just this natural push inside us to just kind of find our categories and do it. For example, my wife and I, she cooks the meals and she wants to cook the meals. I'll try to cook the meals. I'll fuck it up. I still don't know how to load the dishwasher right. Now, my little secret with you is I don't want to know how to load the dishwasher right because she'll expect me to do it more often. But also, I do more of the outside shit, and I paint the windows and, that kind of stuff. And I don't know, we're just comfortable in those zones. But one thing I try to do, and let me just, pat myself on the back here, is I do try to make sure we're even. If she's doing more housework, I get this guilt complex and I get up and do some chores. And I learned that from my mom, because the one thing you didn't do is relax when she was working in the house. Hell no. If you're watching TV and she's making dinner, doing the dishes, you better get your butt up and either do your homework or start dusting some furniture. So I have a little anxiety about that. But finding that work-life balance, they say it's there. I never found it. I did, I would like to say that my recreation and vacationing has been very satisfying. My wife and I have great vacations that we go on and have a lot of time during our leisure, but I still struggle to find that. And I've honestly, Randy, I've given up trying to figure it out. What I just try to do is really enjoy the downtime. And then when I'm in the busy time, instead of resenting it, because, hey, I'm 63, I shouldn't be working this hard. I just do it and I feel a lot better. It makes me happy in the end. As long as I don't resent it, then work becomes something that makes me, actually makes me happy. And if I'm kind of right about our meaning, some of the things that, I may have to quote Jordan Peterson here. What did I hear him say that I liked? Hard work, discipline, and self-reliance. Now, Jordan isn't the first guy to say that or the first woman to ever say that by any means, because those are Stoic things. They're Buddhist things. Any discipline has that kind of idea. But is it not our nature to just do that? Is to work hard, learn from it, and be self-reliant? Is there any other kind of existence that most of us would want other than that? I mean, people say, "Oh, I'd love to win the lottery." People who win the lottery aren't any happier than people who don't win the lottery. They usually piss it away, or they invest it and create a business, and they end up working again.
Yes. Yeah. I was going to say those things. What were the 3 points again? There was the Jordan Peterson things. It was.
It is work hard.
Work hard.
I want to say learn lessons from it or progress, become a better person, and then be self-reliant.
Yeah. So you probably could hear the echoes of those things inside their Führer bunker as well.
Like I said, I think it's in every culture, and it's been hardest for good and bad.
Yes.
Yes.
Echoing in the valley from somebody saying it up in the eagle's nest in Austria.
You would have heard it in Pol Pot's camps for sure.
Sure.
You certainly hear it in any totalitarian structure. The worker is the backbone of our society. Work hard, and the book Animal Farm. Remember the horse is like,
I do.
Work hard, be self-reliant. I hope I didn't sound like the new right here.
No,
but
that was a Jordan Peterson joke on my part. I needed to squeeze it in.
Well, Peterson to me is an interesting cat because he's a Canadian, and they're always interesting to me because they're so darn nice. And at the same time, I wouldn't tango with them because they play hockey. But he, he's for socialized medicine. He's for distribution of wealth. Then he has these other, this kind of cultural conservatism piece of him. that makes him interesting. And I haven't read his books. I've seen him mostly on like Bill Maher, and John on the Daily Show. This is where I've seen Jordan Peterson speak. But I found him interesting because he says these. Sometimes he says. Actually, I've watched Jordan Peterson debates on YouTube because he is a master, absolute master of making his point by being careful not to step on other people's points, and he ends up turning them around to where they have to agree with him. You know, I mean, he's really exceptional at doing that. So sometimes I watch him and other people who have that ability almost as artists to debate and keep a cool head.
Yeah, it's not the first time that somebody on this podcast has mentioned him.
Yeah,
with like a grain of salt, holding their nose, with a grain of salt, because Peterson has undeniable intellectual gifts and communicative. But yeah, I just thought I needed to get the Führerbunker joke in there. There's one, even if it's not accurate, it's fun.